Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good day, everyone. So let us start our event today with Al-Fatiha. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome everyone to our IIUM alumni webinar for today. Okay. On behalf of IIUM Alumni Relations Divisions and Kuliah of Education, okay, I would like to welcome everyone for attending this particular session for today. Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to say my dearest welcome to our Associate Professor Dr. Azam Othman, Director of Alumni Relations Division, as well as Professor Dr. Ainul Mazia Zubairi, Dean Kuliah of Education. Okay. Next, I would like for us to get to know our speaker and moderator for today. So our topic for today is Grief and Loss series, coping with the loss of a loved one. I'm sure all of you could relate with the topic of today. Our speaker for today, Associate Professor Dr. Kasih Abu Bakar. She is the author of Grief to Great Memoir series. Okay, she has done a lot of research regarding Rush models, and then she's a very good speaker when it comes to Arabic, and she's done a lot of research when it comes to empathy and when it comes to a lot of losses. And in her books, she talks about a lot of her journey in terms of getting a hold of redirection and how she overcome all those challenges when talking about how she rebuilt her life. So we are going to get back to that. Okay, so when it comes to our moderator, so our moderator is a counselor educator from the Department of Educational Psychology and Counseling from the Kuliah of Education. All right, her area of specialization is grief counseling, so grief, loss, and bereavement crisis counseling. She does volunteer work helping in community counseling, crisis disaster, mental health in Malaysia, flood disaster, and airplane disaster when it comes to MH370 as well as 17. Okay, some of the other cases she's covered also include Sweden case as well as Lahad Datu. So she is also an executive committee of Persatuan Counseling Malaysia in Perkama. So she is also active with NGO activities and other community engagements related to B40 and homeless people in Ora Asli community. So without wasting our time, let's proceed to our moderator, Dr. Hani Zarais.
Thanks, Sister Sazwin. Alhamdulillah. I think this is. I hope you can hear me clearly because it is raining here, inshallah. So I hope you can hear me. Okay. If something happened in between, somebody needs to rescue me. Okay. So thank you, Sister Sazwin. The Alumni Director, Associate Dr. Azam Osman, Professor Dr. Ainul Mazia, Dean of Kuliah of Education, our guest speaker for the day, Associate Professor Dr. Kasih Abu Bakar, and participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to thank IIUM alumni for organizing this. This is not an everyday topic. I hope the grief and loss series will be able to reach those who are affected by personal loss. While death is certain in life, talking about personal grief out in the open is still not quite practiced in our culture. So since you have introduced Dr. Kasih, I just want to inform that the session, as we agreed, will be conducted bilingual, English and Malay. We will welcome questions at the end of the talk. In the chat room, you can actually post your questions. We will try to entertain this within this 1 hour. Okay. I know the MC has introduced our guest speaker for the day. Actually, we are very fortunate today. Dr. Kasih is willing to share her personal experience of loss. Yeah, she's from UKM, our twice IIM alumni, Diploma of Education in Islamic Education and Tasawwuf in 1993, and PhD in 2008. Okay. I think the one that is need to be highlighted is the the recent book that was just published by Dr. Kasih. Just to give you some background, she's a mother of 7. She's the widow of the late Associate Professor Dr. Marzuki, our former Dean and colleague at Kuliah of Education, the former Director of CXL, and also the former Dean of ANR, was for ANR then. Okay, it has been 10 years, and it was a shock to the I think to the whole IOM committee and family and friends. It was sudden and unexpected. On the 24th of December 2021, 2010, sorry. First heart attack on Friday at the age of 50. So, and here today, we would like to share the 3 books that came in 3 sets, okay, Grief to Great Memoir series, Prologue, Born Without a Father, was co-authored with Mazin Marzuki, the youngest son of the couple, who actually in the womb when you had that experience, that loss, sudden loss. The third one is The Pregnant Widow. All right. So inshallah, I think we have 7 children, 6 boys and 1 girl, well protected with the boys. And the last one, Mazin, now 12 years old. He just had
10.
First, 10 at 10.
Yeah.
10 a few days ago.
Yep. He launched the books on his birthday.
His birthday, yeah, launched the book on his birthday. And we just realized that this weekend is also Father's Day, and I hope this will also be something that can be, a good, just timely for us to talk about the loss of a father for Mazin and the other siblings, as well as for Dr. Kasih to share the personal experience. Okay, I guess I will just proceed with the first question. A very short and sweet. I just want to know, what makes you decide to write?
That is an interesting question that I never thought of. I just wrote, okay, all right. But you made me think, what was the underlying belief that pushed me to write the books, okay? Number one, I think I am known for being a very positive person, since my childhood days, my schooling days and everything. Most of the time I was a very positive person, and inshallah a woman of faith, But when my late husband died, the event was so devastating. There was just so much pain that I didn't see coming, that too many things happened. I didn't see them coming. We were not expecting the changes, despite being the fact that I was like always prepared for death. I thought I was. I thought I was prepared for death. And I used to prepare my children for death of their parents and all these things. But despite all those, I felt a lot of pain. And if I, being that kind of positive person, being that kind of person who was kind of prepared for death, had to go through such a devastating moments, then I can imagine what it is like for others out there, because I'm not the only one who suffered the loss of a loved one. There are many other people whose husbands die, whether they are in their elderly age or whether they were young or younger than me, in fact. And there are others who suffer from the loss of their children, loss of husbands, loss of parents, loss of siblings, loss of fiancés and lovers and all. So I thought that it would be good to share, and especially because my experience was kind of unique. Now, many people lose their husbands, but how many of us lose their husbands when they have like 6 children? How many people of us lose their husbands when they were pregnant? You know, there are a few others, but it's like how many percentage of us who lose their husbands go through such circumstances. And these are very unique circumstances that I felt compelled to share with others. Now, another thing that pushed me to share this is because I myself need to explore what I did, why I did what I did. You know, what did I do? What did I do that helped me cope until today? What helped? What didn't help? What do I wish to see changing so that we can grieve better? Because and what did I do? Why did I do what I did? Okay, what did I actually go through? In fact, as I was writing the books or rewriting my books, I explored more and more of what happened in the past 10 years or so, right? Okay.
Okay, what exactly you're talking about? What helps and what is not helping? What helped you most in coping with the loss? Your source of strengths, and perhaps maybe you can share your psycho-spiritual journey that you find helpful that we can share to us.
Okay, right. You see, when we talk about grief, okay, so I wonder whether all the audience understand what grief is. Dr. Haniza, perhaps you can explain first what is the meaning of grief from the grief expert.
Okay, simple explanation. Any reaction to the loss is grief. It can be shown, manifested with our physical reaction, emotional reactions, and also our thoughts. So how we react to the loss is actually grief. So the grief experience can be manifested in many ways.
Okay, all right. So actually, throughout my life, the only person I know talking about grief was Dr. Haniza. Okay. Before I befriended her, I never knew what grief was. I never knew what grief was. So when I befriended her, then I knew what grief was, and I was so glad that I knew about it. At least I knew a little bit about it when I went through my own grief, right? So when Dr. Hanis asked what helped and what didn't, and how did this psycho-spiritual thing, this is the name, part of the name that I gave to my book, psycho-spiritual memoir. So the reaction that Dr. Haniza was talking to, it could be in your behaviors, it could be in your feelings, it could be in your thoughts. It's just a myriad set of experiences that I was like trying to capture each and every one of them, and I couldn't capture them all, So I still miss something. Oh yeah, I remember I went through that. Oh, I had that, but most of it, I think would be like 95, 96, 97% would be painful ones. So when they are painful, then you have to be able to cope with it. When something is painful, you have to be able to cope with it. Yeah? Okay, like your head is bursting, aching and bursting, what would you do? You would probably take some painkiller, right? Okay, so the same thing is happening when your heart is like, I don't know, how do you describe the pain of a heart? Anguished, agonized, okay, this grief in Malay, the word is not sedih, it's like lara, duka lara. Okay, it's duka lara. I was like trying to find what's the Malay word for grief? It is duka lara.
There's another one. Hiba
is not even close, I think. It's duka lara. It's lara. Okay. That taruh degree dia lah. I cannot even describe what the degree of pain that we felt. Okay. So you have to have ways of coping with it, or you cannot live. Okay, you can't live if you don't cope with your pain. So for me, it is important that we acknowledge the grief. Because if we don't acknowledge the grief, we're going to be asking ourselves, what's happening? Why am I like this? We are going to be wronging ourselves. Okay. And even the society, even because they don't understand what grief, they can come to my house and ask me, so you're not over yet? You see, things like that, you know. It's that my husband just died 3 weeks ago. You're asking me, it's not over it yet. You see, it's not just the lara. It's not just the lara. It's not just the grief, the emotional states. There is impact. There is impact in every single sense of the word. Nothing in my life, nothing about me, nothing about my family is not impacted by the death. So one is about dealing with the emotional and the thoughts, emotions and the thoughts, and the other is about dealing with the impact of the death. All right. So coping strategies are very important. It's very important. Okay. I can tell you what I observe in other people. Okay. When their husbands die, okay, they look depressed. They do. I see many people who look depressed. Not all of them, but many who look depressed. I also hear stories about women who die of cancer after 2 years after their husbands died. I think it can be a result of their mind telling themselves to shut down. Because when your husband dies, no, you know, the attachment with your husband is very strong attachment. It's a very strong attachment. You are like one. You are like one. So when the husband dies, it's like part of you is taken away and you want to die too. You want to die too. All right? Ask any widow. Ask any widow. Do they want to tell you that? I don't know. Okay? But you cannot die because I believe, I know for sure, life is not mine. Life belongs to God. The absolute owner of life is God's. Okay? So I must live. I must live until that God says I die. Okay? So that is the spiritual part, you know, that stops me from wanting to die too. So what I would do is what I did was to tell myself that I will live, and to tell my body that it should not shut down.
That's difficult.
Yeah. I tell my body, I practically tell my body that it should not shut down. And the other motive, okay, the other reason how I coped with this loss of a loved one is that the situation was already very bad. It's very bad. The impact was so bad. I'm lucky that at least I have a job. At least I have a job. I have some money. Okay, but there are other people whose economic condition is so bad, you know. But it's bad enough. It's bad enough with 6 children, with very young children, you know, pregnant, and we were just like moved to a new house and we haven't even finished moving, you know. There's so many things. I was also parenting my elderly father at that point of time. Okay, so and the situation was already too bad that I told myself I cannot make things any worse than it already is. If I chose to live in misery, if I had chosen not to cope well with my grief, it will only aggravate the situation. So there is a decision to make there. What is it that we choose? Do we choose to disappear from life? Do we choose to quit life and follow our late husband? You know, all right. Do we choose to live in misery? Or do we choose to live and make the best of life? It's a choice.
You mentioned painful moments, you know, and it can be intense. The one thing about grief, it can come and go anytime. And very often people talk about, you know, some of the things that people say, oh, you are not over yet, you know.
Yeah.
And how do you react to that kind of statements made by people? Is there any statements that you think that is hurting you or should not be said? Can you just, I'm sure you have experienced those moments when people say things and they mean well.
Yeah, they mean well.
All right, can you share any moments like that?
Yeah, a lot. A lot of people say that. A lot of people actually say that. Oh my God. It's like, yeah. Okay, but that doesn't only come from other people. It also came from me, partly. Okay, when it comes from other people, just say at that point of time, I didn't know how to react. I will just keep quiet. It's like in my head. What are you talking about? I should be over, or whatever you said. But the other thing was also coming from me. I was always giving myself that timeline. I think I should be okay in 6 months. I should be okay like in 9 months. I should be okay in 1 year. Okay, that is how
the timeline.
Yeah, I actually give myself timelines. All right, but and then I noticed that it wasn't working that way. And when it wasn't working, it was like wronging myself in a way. Wronging myself in a way. Why am I still like this? Why am I still like this? Why am I not okay yet? Why do sometimes I'm okay? Why is it sometimes I'm not okay? Why is it sometimes in the morning I'm okay, in the evening I'm not? Last week I was okay, this week I'm not, Why suddenly I'm crying again? Why suddenly I have an outburst, So, and I was starting to wrong myself, And then I realized, and I kept reading, about grief. I kept reading and reading about grief, and I realized, no, it will never be over. It will never be over. It does get less. But it can be triggered at any moment. It can be triggered anyway. Even if you are like 50 years down the road, it can again be triggered. Okay. So when I knew that there is really no timeline for grief to end, then I came to peace with myself. It's okay. If I'm sad, that's all right. Okay. So this and if the griever thinks there's a timeline, you can imagine what other people would think. So you can't really blame them, because our education about grief, about death, and about the process of death and the process of grieving, we are still like, we have not really raised the bar when it comes to educating people about grief. We talk about death. Death is certain. You belong to God. You will go back to God. But we never talk about what happens after your loved ones die. We don't talk about that. We don't prepare ourselves for that.
You said earlier, your loss is unique.
Yeah.
Every single loss that we have experienced by others is actually unique.
Yeah.
Because we are different, we cope differently. There's no one way of coping. And I like the part that when you actually admit your frustration, trying to cope, trying to see why the timeline, we have deadlines or always then in our academic world, but this time of deadline is never arrived, never got here. What happened, and I think this is the part that probably we need to share and educate the public. You are saying something that actually proven what is there in the book, or when we read something about there's no timeline to grieve, and we must allow ourselves to grieve, and we can. There's no set rules. There's no right or wrong, as long as it's not against our religion. And this is something that is really interesting point that you have highlighted there, and you mentioned the word triggered just now. If you don't mind, this is not in our question, but I would like to know what are some of the triggers that actually bring back all the memories that can be, create that grief to resurface again, and the painful, intense moments to come back to you.
Yeah, the triggers can vary, and they vary from person to person. Like for some people, seeing another person get married would be a trigger for some people. For me, that that doesn't happen. I'm happy to see people getting married. Oh, I'm so happy to see them getting married. I'm always wishing them the best. But usually for me, the triggers would be those related to my children. Like for example, when I was sending one of I think my third son to MRSM for an interview, and it was in, I think it was in Terengganu. Yeah, it was in Terengganu, in what do you call it, Besut, something like that. So I was there. I was there 4 years earlier, sending another son with my late husband. Yeah. So when my son was actually inside the rooms doing his test and the selection test, I was actually crying and crying in the musalla there. Just the memories of my husband, my late husband, and my eldest son, and I coming into the gates, sending the son, the elder brother last time, 4 years earlier, and now I'm alone with this guy. I have no father to send him. That was just like a big trigger, and I was crying and crying and crying. Everybody's looking at me. Why is this lady crying? Okay, so this is one of the trigger. Another trigger is I think one of the big first triggers were like I went for an interview for some postdoc or something with at my in UKM, and when the interviewers asked me questions, why do you want to go here and not there? It's like suddenly like for the first time, I was thinking of the impacts of the death on me. Since the death, I was always thinking about my children. Nothing about me. And then suddenly, oh my God, I had plans before the death. I had plans. I was going to go back to America to do my postdoc, and I was already corresponding with the people, the institutions in America to do my postdoc there. And suddenly, the death came, and it was totally forgotten. The plan was already totally forgotten. So that was the very first time I thought of the impact on me, and I couldn't even stay in the interview room. I just had to go out because I just gave very brief answers in the interviews. I went out and I just cried and took the rest of the day off. Okay, so yeah.
There are a lot of readjustment that you make in your life.
Multiple adjustment. There is always adjustment, always, and that is another source of stress. Yeah.
Any particular roles that you find it, after the death of your late husband, that you find you have to take over certain roles as both roles as a father's roles that is missing? Okay.
The roles. Yeah. I think this is one of the things that I do mention in one of my books, and I will have a special series on this bi-parenting issue, about raising orphans and bi-parenting. Okay, being a mother. Tell me who doesn't feel tired of being a mother? Shazwin, are you a mother already?
I don't want to say this listening.
No.
Okay.
My loss is different. I have a disability.
Okay, right. So there's a grief too. Okay, Dr. Hanisa knows what it's like to be a mother. Is it tiring? Okay.
No word.
No word to describe. Dr. Azam, are you a father? Is it tiring to be a father? Yeah. Okay. So you can imagine all the roles, the responsibilities, the mental, emotional, and physical responsibilities of a mother, the physical, mental, and emotional responsibilities of a father. Okay. Plus the transactions and the emotional aftermath of the death, plus your you no longer have someone to unwind with. All right, true, right? Yeah, so you can put them all together and you can imagine how tiring that is. That is very exhausting. So this issue of by parenting, okay, this is one of the things that I begin to show in talk about in my books, especially in the Born Without a Father. Okay, Born Without a Father was co-authored by my son Mazin, who never saw his dad. Okay, and so there were issues about the absence of a father model, the absence of a father and the absence of a father model, right? Father role. So how do you do that? Okay, number one, you know what's one of the biggest impact that I had? I never help my children with their studies anymore after their father died. I don't have the energy anymore. My role has shifted to being the breadwinner, the primary breadwinner. In the past, I was also earning, but it was secondary. You know, now my role, focus has shifted. I no longer help my children with their studies. Not enough energy. Number two, everything from A to Z, inside the house, outside the house, schooling, decisions about school, everything, every single thing now is all on me. So that really was taxing. Very, very, very taxing. Number three, I'm a woman, I'm not a man. I'm not a father. I'm not a father. Okay? There are things that fathers do that I can't do with my kids. I don't know how to challenge my kids like fathers do. I don't know how to guide them how to become a man, because I only know how to become a woman and a mother. So, yeah, okay. But there are only certain things that I can do. For example, when it comes to Mazin, who never knew his father. Okay, so I went to ask people who have research about fatherhood, the role of fatherhood. Okay, so I say, what can I do? My son has never seen his father. He never knew what having a father is like and what his father was like. He doesn't know. So she said to me, I think you probably know her, Asia. She was in IRKHS. Yeah. So Asia told me that you can talk about his father. So I did that, talk a lot about his father, so that he knows him somehow. Okay. All right. So there are only certain things that I can make up for the loss of the role of fatherhood, but there are many that I can't. And this is where, by right, the role of relatives, the role of the society come in. Okay. Unfortunately, you know, like for example, I talk about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one of my books. You know, okay, fine. He lost his dad when he was like 3 months old, and then he lost his mother when he was young. Yet he had grandfather, he had uncles who were very patriotic and who could show him what it meant to be the man of the tribe, what it meant to be the man of the family. But in our society now, we are quite disintegrated, and that is not happening. That is not happening. You don't have people coming in to fill in, say, okay, I'm going to show you what it means to be a father, what it means to be a man. You don't have people coming in to do that. So this is one of the things that the contemporary society has to look at. Where is that male figure in the society? What happens to these kids who have no male role models?
Do you want to share? I remember reading one part of the book, how you actually took Mazin to IIUM.
Yeah.
So I really love that part. If you can share that, and also the bear.
The bear. Oh yeah. Okay.
Really, I'm amazed with that. I think that's a very good coping. And can you share that with the participants? And that's a wonderful, wonderful coping that you have actually, very creative one. And I want you to share that part. That's really lovely.
Okay, yeah, I think it was, yeah. I think Mazin was around 4 years old when he started realizing that he used to call my neighbor next door. It's like he would go there and say, he would call him ayah. I don't know who taught him that, but he just went there to call him ayah. At age 4, suddenly everybody he seems to show some kind of a turning point, you know. Then suddenly he came back one day and said, but that is not my father. Itu bukan ayah Mazin. Itu ayah. Are you hearing me? Okay. Itu ayah Abby, the girl next door. Okay. So then one day I think we were at the mosque and he was saying, I want, you know what I want? He said. I asked him whether do you want to sleep on my lap. I was well, we were just at the mosque. You know, I was sleepy. And I asked him, do you want to sleep on my lap? No. I said, I want to sleep in between you on one side and my ayah on the other side. So I said, oh my God, he has that in his mind. So I decided the next day to look for the biggest teddy bear I could find. so after a few nights, he slept in between the teddy bear and then suddenly he said, no, but this is not my ayah. His nose doesn't resemble the nose of my ayah. Okay. So that was one of the things we did. And then recently he's bigger. Then I realized he doesn't see the model of a man going to work and then returning home from work, and he doesn't see that. He only sees his mother doing all those things. So I feel that they get this confusion about what being a mother is, you know. Like being a mother is always like being a mother and father. Okay. So I mean, we do sometimes go to IM, but I've never really talked to him about how his father worked there. So one day, I think it was quite recent. Yeah. So I took him to IIUM and I said, okay, this was your father's office and this was his other office. This was where he used to park his car. This was where he teach. This was where everything that I could tell him about his father. But I don't have the privilege yet to actually take him to the offices. Wait until the lockdown is over. You know, then probably I will take him to all of you and let you talk about his father, so that he knows more about his father. I want him to know about his father from his colleagues, to show him what were the qualities and the values that his father carried with him when he was working.
You know what, we can do that. Have all the colleagues, you know, sit down as Mazin can ask questions from us. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. He's a very shy guy, though. Yeah.
But with the curiosity, I think he will ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, I also want to just I've read all the 3 series, and I know you before and after the death, and I can see that you are always a very amazing lady to me. But the part that I think everybody say, oh, Kasih is so strong. That's one word that always people say. Kasih is strong. Kasih can handle it. You know, luaran, from outside people will see you as a strong lady. But in reality, it can be also painful. I'm talking about the 3 books that I would like, if you want to, I think it's worth purchasing the book. It's not that expensive. And it's really, Dr. Kasih share very honest experience. You feel that you are in the labor room, for example. I felt like I was there with you, watching you, like you were in the labor room, looking at the window with Mazuki by the window on the phone, and you said, okay, dulu when he was there at the phone, it was annoying to you, but now I don't care. You can just still be there by the window. I just want you to be there. You can, that moment really, I felt like when I reading your book, I imagine myself in that situation. Okay, so I think this has been 10 years. If any one of you are watching or listening to this session, if your loss is still new, in these past years, you may not be able to relate to, how, Dr. Kasih seems so positive, where we can smile and all that. But the truth is, when you first started, it's not that easy. And I know that for the fact that many people have shared it over the years, to be able to talk about it, smiling, but the sadness is still there. And I also want to ask you, Dr. Kasih, when you write, of course, you will, the painful moment will resurface. Writing painful moment is hard. Along the journey, you definitely experience the intense moment as you revisited all the those memories. There are people who actually suppress those moments. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to revisit. But in your case, you revisited all those memories, and naturally, when you write, the painful feeling will resurface. How did you manage to continue? Not one book, not two books, but three books. And how do you react when those intense feelings of pouring your heart out, writing down? What did you do to keep writing after that? You're muted, Dr. Kasih.
Do you mind if I share my screen just for a while? Because I think people are wondering what are the books, Okay, I'll just show what are the books. Okay.
You can actually share what specifically in the books that you.
I don't think I'm sharing what's specifically in the book, but I will show you what are the books. Are you seeing my sharing? Are you seeing?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So this is the one of the first book. Okay, it's the first series. It's actually a very short ebook. Okay, a very short ebook. It was actually just I used to write it in a conventional form, but I decided to break it into smaller ebooks so that people don't get tired reading. All right. So this was the prologue. Okay, the prologue was my first reaction to the death. Okay. So it corresponds to the first stage of grief, Dr. Haniza. Only the first stage of the grief. Okay. How it happened, how I reacted to the first news about the grief, about the death. Okay. Only the first moments. And I concluded it with putting down all the emotions that I went through. Okay, and I realized that there are many more that I didn't put, even the major ones that have impacted my career actually. Okay, that will be in my second edition probably, or my next series. Okay, then this is the third one, the Grief to Great, the Pregnant Widow. So this was like, I was if Dr. Hanita said that every grief experience is unique, this was super unique because okay, this was the book that Dr. Hanita was talking about. Actually, it was Dr. Zahiri on the other end of the phone when Dr. Marzuki was talking in the labor room. Okay. It was Zahiri, and I said, "Wow, Zahiri, you called the wrong time." Okay. So right. Okay. So yes, if you want to know what I went through throughout the pregnancy and how I managed the maternal fetal stress, this book, the theme was a lot about how to cope with grief during pregnancy and managing the stress on me and the stress on the fetus. Remember, I was with child. Okay, so saya mengandung, so I needed to minimize that. Okay, so and then this is the other book that Mazin wrote. I co-wrote with him. He was the first author. He gave his perspective. In his preface, he wrote, "Kids with fathers wonder what it's like. Kids without fathers wonder what it's like to have fathers. Kids without fathers wonder kids with fathers wonder what it's like not to have fathers." So he wrote his book. Okay. So you will see what he wants to, like, I want to see my real father in heaven, things like that. Okay. So basically, these are my books. Okay. So I will stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? I need to stop. I can stop sharing. You still seeing my this? Or have I stopped sharing? Stop sharing. Okay, I stopped sharing. Okay, so you were seeing the pain resurface. Okay, let me tell you, how long have I been writing this? Okay, in the first few years, okay, I think about the first 3 years, I couldn't read or write actually. I couldn't even read. My mind was so full. It's like macam, like you say, perut sebu, That was what my mind was. I couldn't take input. Not even from the TV, not even for anything. Even when I was supervising my students, I had to rely on what they were telling me. Then I would guide them. And I couldn't write. Every reading and writing was a pain. in my occipital part. Every reading and writing. There was only one moment when I could write, and then after that it deteriorated. Some things were happening to my cognitive functions. And then, so I decided to share my grief through videos. It wasn't really quite sharing my grief. Yeah, I shared through videos in YouTube's. Okay, I was actually telling about my coping with the grief. Okay, but at that moment, if you look at me in the videos, you would see that I have not opened up. I have not revealed my vulnerability. I was showing the strong facade of me. Okay. But then things went on, and I became drained to the last drop. Okay. Then I started seeking more professional help. Okay. Are you with me, Shazwin? Dr. Haniza is out.
Yes, I am. Yeah, but I'm still here.
Okay, should I go on?
Yeah.
Okay, so so I started seeking help. Okay, and this is going to be one of my series, how I did interventions to help me get better. Okay, and it is only during one of my interventions that I started to show my vulnerability. Okay, and it was only after I started coming to terms with my vulnerability that I was able to start writing. Okay, and Prof. Malik Badi has actually read all my manuscripts, and he was he has read and said, "Cassie, is good. Go, please publish them." But unfortunately, he passed away before he could see them being published. Okay, because I was like lagging it, you know. All right, so yes, the pain did resurface. Even when I'm reading the books that have been published, I can still cry. The moments that you were mentioning, you know, about the labor and everything. When I read it just now, I was like, oh my God, I was still crying. Okay, but that is okay. That is part of the grief. You know, we don't stop grieving. We just move on with the grief. And the more I write, the more I explore what are my emotions, the more I explore what I did and what I did well, what I did not do too well, whatever that was. Okay, and how this can influence the way we look at grief, the way the society looks at grief, the way the policies treat grief. Okay, the more we do this, the more we heal. I must acknowledge the pain for me to heal. And I must let this pain not come in vain. It must influence certain things in the society. And in this particular thing, like I'm happy if I could work with Dr. Haniza to raise awareness about grief. Okay. And especially in pregnant widow, I was talking about managing maternal fetal stress. And I thought all I did was just based on my intuition, which was scientifically unfounded. And I actually had written that conclusion, scientifically unfounded. Then suddenly I found research supporting that we really need to support pregnant mothers in grief, because research has shown that if we allow the pregnant mothers to grieve and do not help to grieve too much, you know, we do not reduce their stress. We do not reduce their stress in coping with the impact of the death. Chances are the fetus in the wombs are affected, and many of them are dependent on ADHD drugs in their childhood and later on in life in anti-anxiety and antidepressant drugs. And this is research in Sweden. Okay, so I was glad that somehow Allah gave me the ilham to manage my maternal fetal stress. Okay.
I think let's try to answer one question. There's one question here. What is your view in the chat room? What is your view if a wife who at the time she lost her job, suddenly lost her husband, and she has a child to take care of alone. What kind of action should be taken? This is not the same as the situation a wife who does have a job and her own source of income. I think this is something like, in the different situation, what kind of advice can we give this lady?
My advice to this lady is to reach out. This is not for her to do alone. Any orphan, any widow is Islamically the responsibility of the society. She has to reach out, and people around her have to help her get the help that she needs. She has to cope with her husband. She has a child to take care of. And she has her grief to go through. People around her must help her. Okay? I know she can do what? Or how much, I do not know what is her qualification or whatever. Even if she has qualification, this is a difficult time for her. Many people, I've read researches, women who are not working, they have to find work. Okay, women who are not working have to find work. Or women who are working and not earning enough, they have to venture into business, for example. Okay, so I really cannot give a general answer, but all I'm saying is that please reach out, and if there are other people or any societies or any NGOs or any of her relatives who are listening to this, help her cope with her grief, help her survive with her child. This is a responsibility of the society.
You mentioned about support system.
Yes.
And that's very important.
This is so important.
So to what extent, I'm sure that if I can just raise thing that you think the moment that someone really need help beyond the support system, do you think it is necessary to get professional help or any counseling assistance?
Definite, so that she has more confidence in what she's doing. And it did help me. I started attending counseling 3 weeks after the demise of my husband. Not only me, I put my children through play therapy as well. And I do not know how old is the child. Okay, I do not know how old is the child, but yeah, definitely he or she is impacted as well. So this is another matter that I have not talked about in my series. That is in my forthcoming series about raising orphans and by parenting. It's not just the wife or the widow who is affected. The children are too, and they too need help.
Yeah, there's one thing that when you mention children, maybe I might as well share a little bit about children, because when you also mention play therapy, that children, they do not grieve the same way like adults. They don't have the words, they don't have the language to express themselves. So they might be, they may need, if they need help, they may need to use different kind of strategies. And I'm like I said, Dr. Kasi, you have actually brought your kids to play therapy, and some of the signs that the kids are actually need help is when they have nightmares at night. They could be experiencing some kind of diarrhea, and those are the symptoms that shows they're expressive themselves, they're missing their parents. So I just want to include that here so that people who are actually experiencing loss, that how to help the kids. And the kids, they are unique, very unique. And just because they're quiet doesn't mean that they are not grieving. Do you actually, I want to ask you directly, if you can choose to answer or not. Do you grieve openly in front of your children, or do you there are people who hide, and I know someone who actually cried in the shower, just not to show their sadness to the children in order to protect. Do you do that? Okay.
I didn't.
Okay, can you share with us how do you actually manage your own grief, and around you, your children also grieving, and how do you manage those situations?
As I told you, it wasn't very early in my grief set. I started showing up my vulnerability. No, it was much later, because I'm always the kind. It's not because of the death, but in any event, I don't cry in front of people. Okay, I'm not a crier. I'm not a crier. Two, I don't cry in front of people. Okay. So I didn't quite model that grief. But my children, my two youngest children then, who were about 6 and 3, they experienced those diarrhea and vomiting for the first 3 weeks after the death. Every single night. Every single night. Yeah. I couldn't sleep. Basically, I couldn't sleep. Not only from the shock of the death, but also I was attending to them. Okay. And the older ones, I think the hardest ones to deal with are the bigger ones, because they can already talk, but they were chose not to talk, you know. And I don't know whether until now they have dealt with their grief or not. I do not know, because I do take them to therapists, but if I do not really know whether they open up or they don't, because I don't know what happens inside the sessions. Okay, so but from time to time I have to check. And my number 6 he was 3 years old then. He doesn't quite remember his father, but I asked him, if you think of your ayah, what do you feel? Pain. Where do you feel that pain? Here. He knows, he feels the pain. It's like it's cellular level. But although he doesn't quite remember, but the pain stays. Yeah. So this has to be dealt with. So from time to time we have to check on it, and probably send him from time to time to the counselor or pay therapy or whatever. Okay. And I know this will cost some money. So this is where I think certain NGOs can help parents of single widows who may not be able to afford these kinds of treatments. NGOs dealing with grief and psychological aspects of the society may need to come in and help.
As a grief counselors, you mentioned about effects on your children. Because in our practice, when we help people, we always try to normalize the reactions that you experience, and the fact that we thought that, you know, when we are in that situation, because of inability to communicate how we feel, sometimes it is also important for us to be able to, if you can actually share what are some of the effects, so that we can actually help others who have similar experience to normalize whatever they experience are actually normal in that situation when you lost someone important in your life.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good word, normalizing. Okay, we feel guilty sometimes because we think we are not grieving the right way. We are not having enough faith, for example. You know, people say, oh, you kan orang beriman. You know, people say, you kan orang beriman. Things like that. No, you shouldn't be behaving this way. Hey, but remember, Prophet Muhammad was very sad when he lost his son. He was sad when he lost Khadijah. Remember, Prophet Yaqub, alayhi salam, cried until he became blind over the disappearance or loss of Yusuf. Okay, Prophet Yusuf. So grief is part of being human. Grief is part of being human. Okay, and if you don't grieve, you're just robotizing yourself. Okay, so, and in order for you to heal from that grief is to allow yourself to be human. The only thing that has to happen is how do we guide people to grieve in a manner that does not destroy them, but in a manner that will lead them to healing over time.
Any
So
religious coping that you can share, Dr. Kasih?
Oh, definite. Religious coping is number one is always to surrender. if you feel that everything is on you, it gets so heavy. And you know that there is only so much that you can do. So the best thing is to let go and let God. Surrender everything to God. Okay, surrender everything to God. Number two, I mean, like I wrote in my memoir that is up there, is forthcoming, you know, like usually our tahajjud will last about what, 45 minutes only, 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. After the death or during the early years of the death, I think my tahajjud became about 3 hours. 3 hours of talking to God, just like Prophet Yaqub, you know, inama ashku bathi ilallah. So I tell my griefs to my God. So that is from the spiritual aspect, is to surrender, to know that this is a test and that all tests is temporary. So when there is a test, do you want to pass your test or fail your test? You want to pass your test. You want to pass your test. You don't want to fail your test. Okay? So you think of what would make me pass this test. You will only do things that will bring you closer to God and bring you closer to the solution. Not something that takes you away from God and not something that brings you further down. Even if it's just one step closer, that is still closer to God. So you want to pass that test. Nobody wants to fail a test. So you want to pass that test to do anything that brings you closer to God and closer to a better solution or to a better situation than what you're already in. Okay.
Okay. Well, this is very interesting discussion, and there are lots. I have lots of questions to ask actually, but I think we, I also, like, I'm aware of the fact that there are people out there who are not exposed to, you know, the idea that I can actually look up and the way you do things, you know, look for information and read a lot. And there are people out there who probably in the public out there who would like to get your advice.
Sure.
That, do you have what advice you have to offer those listening to our conversation today? Maybe those people who have who need that immediate support the minute they lost it, especially in this situation. The sudden loss is normal today during this crisis, COVID-19. So maybe you can share on that part.
Okay. Now, if you are somebody who loses someone you love, okay, I think the first thing is to accept the fact that this is a test. This is a test, right? This is a test, and you need to reconnect or strengthen your connection with God. Okay, that is number one. Okay, but that is not all. Just strengthening your connection with God doesn't solve everything. Okay, it gives you something very strong to hold on to, but it doesn't solve everything. Number two is to get support from the community, from your friends, from relative, from community. If they are helpful, if they are not helpful, ignore it. Just ignore it. And for me, in the beginning part of my grief, I didn't ask for support from the community. I asked support only from the professionals in the early part, because I didn't want to be judged by people who may not. They mean well, but they do not have the skills and the tools to help me. Okay, so it might end up hurting me instead, and I couldn't take any more pain, unnecessary pain. So in the beginning, I would say go for professional help. Get yourself a counselor. If you're working with the government, you can help counselors from your JPA, or for example, or you can get from the Pejabat Agama, I don't know. But Dr. Haniza, probably you can initiate something like we have talked about this before, and NGO specializing in grief, for example, training more people to deal with grief, things like that. And how can we extend support to our people who need help with grief? It is a very niche area in counseling. Not every counselor can actually deal with it effectively. Yeah. And I know there are not too many grief experts in Malaysia. Right. Okay. So if you happen to be a relative or a friend of these grievers or people who lose somebody they love, the best thing to do is to make explicit doa that Allah helps them with whatever they're going through. Okay? Don't telling them to be strong is not the answer, because how strong can you be? And you make them feel that it's wrong for them not to be strong. Okay? So just give the dua that Allah will ease your life. Okay? Okay, ease your life, give you the reward for handling for accepting all these calamities and whatever that is not happening in the way that they should be happening, and also offer any kind of support you can offer. Just offer, as simple as if you're a mechanic, your neighbor is a widow who just lost her husband, at least offer to service her car, as simple as that. And nobody has offered that to me, but that is something you can help with. As simple as that. It's a big chore for her. She already has enough. Like for our sister who asked just now, she has enough. Offer her some job. Offer her some money. Help her with her child's tuition fees. Help her with at least provision for the child for a year, for example. If
what are some of the thing that people do for you that you really appreciate, while you're...
All right. Okay. I think our major concerns as a widow with children. Okay. 1, the health and development of our children. 2, our children's education. These are the 2 major things. Okay. The other is partly about the development, is about, going out, giving them the recreation, the play things that, their father would have done that, and now you don't have enough time to do all those things, So, food. Think of, you bagi makan anak yatim tau. You bagi makan anak yatim, rebutlah peluang ini. Think of how you can provide food for the anak-anak yatim. One child, how much? 200, 300 per month? 400? Think of how you can give it's not like, Hari Raya bagi RM50. That doesn't help us. We want security. We have lost our security. Our source of security and safety is gone. We want security. Can somebody give us a sustenance of like 1 year sustenance, 2 years sustenance, for example? Okay, that helps. A long-term sustenance, not a one-off time of thing. One-off helps. Yeah, it helps, but it doesn't give security. Okay, right. 2, education. Like I said, education. Okay, until now. And I think it's happening quite recently. Somebody is helping me to pay for the tuition fee of one of my sons. That helps me a lot. But of course, I have other sons in the university, other children. But at least one, somebody is helping to pay for that. Because otherwise I would say, okay, when am I going to get this money? What do I have to do to get more money? What do I have to do? And I have so limited energy. I have to do all these things, okay? So education, paying for sustenance, paying for education, helping with sustenance and education. Number 3, you said, I had little children and I was pregnant, okay? And other people have children, maybe little children too. Okay, can somebody once in a while, on a weekly basis, for example, or monthly basis, come in and take the children out to play?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm not talking about going to movies. I'm just talking, just take them to the lake or the seashore, We miss a large part of that. My children miss a large part of that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are almost to the end of the session. I just want to let these people in the group, if you have any questions to ask, opportunity, you can actually unmute. And do you have any question? Dr. Azam, do you have a question?
Prof, I know I know you have any question for Ainul?
Any question? We are all colleagues of Dr. the late Associate Professor Dr. Amar Marzuki. And I actually have one message, a few messages coming in saying that they get touched, or listening to your sharing today. So send a salam to you.
Alaikum salam.
Any question? All right. Shazwin, had a question. I thought you want to ask a question.
Answer my question already.
Okay. All right. I think there has been a very fruitful session. A lot of things have been shared by Dr. Kasih. I think this is a wonderful thing. I hope this is a good start and that can help people to understand the concept of grief in our culture. It is new. It's not like I said, we don't talk about this every day, but this is something that happened in our real life. We talk about coping strategies. We also talk about if you experience any losses in your life, go get help, get the support. If it's not working, if you're still struggling with the issues due to the loss, get professional help. And you are not going crazy if you experience all this kind of emotional reactions. This is just part of grieving process. I would like to thank again Associate Professor Dr. Kasih Abu Bakar for sharing the moment. Remember to buy the book, and I can assure you the book will actually will be a very beneficial thing that is very informative, and we learn a lot about life and the loss in our life. I think that's all for me today. I'm going to pass back to Shazwin. Thank you, Dr. Kasih. Nice to meet you on this platform. All right, I'll pass back to Shazwin.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Kasih. I've learned so much from you today, even though, Alhamdulillah, I haven't lost any loved one, but I managed to also apply it in other sense of my life. I've actually managed to apply it in my sense of managing a disability. So all this while I thought that in order to overcome grief and loss, at one point in life, we are supposed to be able to, at one point, be able to manage, like when you talk about, Shazwin, are you okay? Yes, I am okay. And at one point, I'm supposed to be able to manage it. When you have a skill and when you are able to manage something, it's like, okay, I've acquired that skill of managing your disability or managing the fact that you've lost your loved one. So when you lost your parents or you lost somebody you love, so are you okay? Yes, I'm totally okay. That means I'm totally 100% well. So when you said that it's a process and sometimes you are always going to be triggered throughout your life, I've really learned something valuable today. So all those words that I've learned today, such as adjustments, shifting focus, talking about it, surrendering, acceptance, strengthening connection, supporting from community and professionals, making dua, and all of those are very beneficial. And I hope all of those outside, you have also gained a lot of numerous valuable insights. Okay. With that, any other questions? Yeah, I hope you will always keep in touch and ask and seek help. Yeah, you are not alone. Yeah, always be able to know that we are always here with you. Okay, so I hope we have all benefited from this. Okay, together, inshallah. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to this session. Alhamdulillah, we are at the end of the session. Let's end the session with Tasbih Kifara and Surah Fatiha. Thank you so much.